Tonight's episode includes a Manta Sleep affiliate link, which helps support the show at no extra cost to you. If you've ever tried sleeping with a regular sleep mask and found that light still gets in around the edges, or the mask presses against your eyes and just feels uncomfortable, Manta Sleep takes a different approach. Their masks are designed to give you a true blackout experience while keeping pressure off your eyes, so you can actually relax and forget you're wearing one. They also have several different versions depending on how you sleep, and one of the coolest is their Bluetooth audio sleep mask. It combines the blackout mask with built-in audio so you can listen to music, white noise, or even your favorite sleep stories without having earbuds in your ears all night. And for a podcast like this, that combination just makes sense. Block out the light, put on a story, and let everything else disappear for a while. If you're looking to upgrade your nighttime routine, check out Manta Sleep and find the mask that works best for you. You can find a direct link to them in the description of each episode. They also ship worldwide. Thanks for supporting the show. Now, let's get started.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, where you can settle gently into the quiet edge of evening, letting the day loosen its hold as tonight's story carries you to a seaside town at twilight, where the air tastes faintly of salt and sugar, and gelato dreams glow softly beneath the first stars. Take a slow breath in, as if you were drawing in the calm of the ocean itself. Hold it for a moment, easy and light, then let it drift away. Feel your shoulders soften. Feel your hands become quiet. There's nowhere else to be now. Nothing to solve. Nothing to carry. The world beyond this moment can wait while you rest beside the shore. Imagine the sky turning from pale gold to rose, from rose to lavender, from lavender to a deep blue that seems to breathe. Below it, the sea folds and unfolds in long, sleepy waves. The sand is cool beneath bare feet. Somewhere nearby, a small bell above a shop door gives a gentle chime, and the scent of vanilla, pistachio, lemon, and warm waffle cones floats into the evening air. With every breath, you may let yourself sink a little deeper. The story will move slowly. It will ask nothing of you. You can follow it or simply let it pass like moonlight over water. And when you are ready, the seaside path begins to open, soft and quiet, leading onward into the hush of twilight. At the far edge of a small coastal village where whitewashed houses leaned kindly toward narrow lanes and flower pots overflowed with basil and geraniums, there stood a gelato shop with blue shutters and a striped awning, the color of cream and faded sea glass. The shop had been there longer than anyone in the village could properly remember. Some said it had opened when the lighthouse first lit its lamp. Others whispered that it appeared only on evenings when the sunset was especially tender, when the sea wanted to share a dream with those who listened. The shop was called Il Sogno Dolce, the Sweet Dream, though the name was written in such curling letters above the door that children often traced the shapes in the air and invented their own meanings. Inside, the floor was tiled with small blue squares, cool and polished smooth by years of quiet footsteps. Shelves held jars of candied orange peel, tiny shells, folded paper boats, and glass bottles filled with pale syrups that seemed to catch the last daylight and keep it. Behind the counter lived an old gelataya named Maribel, whose silver hair was always tied loosely at the nape of her neck with a ribbon the color of mist. She moved slowly, not because she was tired, but because she believed everything sweetened when given enough time. Her hands knew how to fold cream into fruit, how to stir roasted hazelnuts into silk, how to coax a whisper of mint from green leaves, and how to balance a flavor so carefully that a single spoonful could remind someone of a summer they had nearly forgotten. On this particular evening, twilight arrived with unusual softness. The fishing boats had returned early, their nets folded like sleeping birds. The market stalls had closed one by one. Linen awnings were drawn in. The last lemons of the day had been placed in wooden crates, their skins glowing faintly as if they had swallowed pieces of the sun. Along the harbor wall, gulls tucked their heads beneath their wings, and the sea, stretching wide beyond the stone quay, turned the color of polished pearl. Maribel opened the shutters of the gelato shop and let the evening air flow in. It carried a cool, salt scent, and under that the faint sweetness of jasmine blooming on a balcony nearby. She listened for a moment. Listening was something she practiced as carefully as stirring. The village had many quiet sounds at twilight. There was the soft tap of a rope against a mast, the clink of cups being washed in distant kitchens, the faint laugh of someone walking home, the hush of sandals over stone. But beneath all of that, on certain nights, there was another sound. It was not music exactly. It was more like the memory of music held inside a shell. Maribel heard it now, very faintly rising from the shoreline, a slow, shimmering hum. She smiled, as if greeting an old friend. When that sound came, she knew it was time to make the twilight flavor. Not every evening received such a flavor. Ordinary days were content with chocolate, strawberry, coffee, cream, and lemon. Ordinary days wanted brightness, comfort, and simple pleasure. But twilight evenings, the true ones, the ones that seemed to open like a secret door between day and night, asked for something quieter, something that tasted of resting boats, cooling sand, distant stars, and dreams not yet dreamed. Maribel brought a wide copper bowl from the back room and placed it on the counter. Into it she poured fresh cream, smooth and pale. Then she added a ribbon of honey gathered from hives kept above the cliffs, where bees wandered through wild thyme and sea lavender. She grated the skin of a small green lemon, not enough to sharpen the cream, only enough to wake it. From a blue glass jar, she took a pinch of sugar that glittered strangely. Not white, not gold, but something in between, like moonlight caught in sand. Last of all, she opened a tiny tin that she kept on the highest shelf. Inside were flakes of salt, gathered on a morning so still that the sea had looked like glass. She added only a few. The bowl sighed softly, though bowls do not usually sigh. Maribel did not appear surprised. She stirred. Outside, the sky deepened. A rose-colored line lingered above the horizon, and the first evening star appeared, patient and steady. As Maribel stirred, the mixture thickened, turning slowly into gelato. but the color was difficult to name. It was pale like cream, yes, but beneath the cream moved hints of lavender, peach, and silvery blue. When she lifted the spoon, the gelato fell back into the bowl in soft folds, each fold catching a glimmer of twilight. At that same hour, a boy named Luca was walking along the upper road that curved above the village. He was not hurrying. He had spent the afternoon helping his grandmother bring folded sheets in from the rooftop lines. And now she'd sent him out with a coin wrapped in a handkerchief and the gentle instruction to choose something sweet before bed. Luca was a quiet child with dark curls and thoughtful eyes. He liked listening more than speaking. He liked watching the sea change colors. He liked the way twilight made everything seem both familiar and magical, as if the world had put on a softer garment. The road descended in slow bends through gardens and stone steps. On either side, the walls were warm from the day, and small lizards slipped into cracks as the air cooled. From an open window came the scent of tomato sauce and rosemary. Somewhere, a radio played a song so old and soft that it seemed to belong not to the house, but to the evening itself. Luca carried the coin carefully. He had already decided he would choose lemon, because lemon was his grandmother's favorite, and she always pretended she wanted only a taste, though she smiled most when he brought enough to share. Yet as he neared the harbor, he noticed a glow at the end of the lane where the gelato shop waited. It was not the usual warm light of lamps. It was gentler. It looked like the inside of a seashell when held toward the sun. He paused beneath the striped awning. The little bell above the door chimed as he stepped inside. Maribel looked up from the copper bowl. "Good evening, Luca," she said, her voice as soft as folded linen. "Good evening," he replied and breathed in. The shop smelled wonderful, but not in any single way. It smelled of cream, yes, and toasted pistachio and ripe peaches, but it also smelled of the shore after sunset, of clean wind and flowers closing for the night, of candles just lit in little windows. Luca came closer to the counter where the twilight gelato rested in its chilled silver pan, shining faintly beneath the glass. "What flavor is that?" he asked. Maribel placed her hands on the counter and considered. "It is the flavor the evening asked for." Luca nodded, as if this made perfect sense. "Would you like to try it?" He glanced at the familiar tubs. Lemon was there, bright and cheerful. Chocolate waited dark and rich. Strawberry rested pink as a summer dress, but the twilight flavor held his gaze. It did not sparkle loudly. It shimmered quietly, like something seen at the edge of sleep. "Yes, please," he said. Maribel took a tiny spoon and shaped a curl of gelato no larger than a shell. Luca tasted it. At first it was cream and honey. Then came a coolness like walking barefoot on sand after sunset. Then lemon very far away. Then a little salt, like a wave leaving lace around the ankles. And after that came something Luca could not name at all. It was a feeling more than a flavor. The feeling of being wrapped in a blanket while the window is open to the sea. The feeling of hearing a story in a language almost remembered, the feeling of a light glowing at the end of a safe and quiet path. He closed his eyes. When he opened them, the gelato shop looked the same and yet softer. The jars on the shelves seemed filled with small moons. The shells looked as though they were listening. The tiles beneath his feet were cool, but not cold. Outside the window, the harbor lamps had begun to bloom, one by one, their reflections trembling in the water. "I'll take that one," he whispered. Maribel smiled and made him a small cone, folding the gelato in slow, generous curves. She tucked a tiny wafer into the top, shaped like a crescent moon. "For your grandmother?" she asked. "For both of us," Luca said. "Then walk home by the sea," Maribel told him. "The path is especially peaceful tonight." Luca thanked her, paid with the coin from the handkerchief, and stepped back into Twilight. The bell chimed behind him. He began along the harbor wall, holding the cone with careful hands. The gelato did not melt quickly. It held its shape as if the evening itself were keeping it cool. The village had become blue and gold. Blue in the alleys, blue beneath the boats, blue in the deepening sky. Gold in the windows, gold in the lamps, gold in the last line of light on the water. The stones of the harbor wall were worn smooth, and Luca walked slowly beside them, listening to the small waves breathe against the steps below. As he walked, the twilight flavor seemed to release its scent into the air. Not strongly, not enough for anyone rushing by to notice, but gently, the way a flower releases fragrance when night comes. The scent drifted toward the moored boats. It touched the nets. It wound around the oars and slipped over the water, and then, from beneath the harbor, small lights appeared. Luca stopped. At first he thought they were reflections from the lamps, but these lights moved differently. They rose from below the surface in pale green and silver dots, as if stars had decided to swim. One by one they gathered near the stone steps, bobbing just beneath the water. Luca leaned closer, calm rather than afraid, because the evening felt too kind for anything to be frightening. The lights drifted into a loose circle. In the middle of the circle, a shape surfaced. It was a little boat, no longer than Luca's arm, made from a curved shell. Its sail was a translucent petal, and its mast was a slender twig polished smooth by the sea. Inside the boat sat a figure so small that Luca might have mistaken her for a carved bead if she had not moved. She wore a dress the color of sea foam, and her hair floated around her as if she were still underwater. Her eyes were dark and bright. She looked up at Luca and lifted one hand. "Good evening," she said. Luca blinked. "Good evening. You have brought the twilight flavor?" He looked at his cone, then back at the tiny traveler. "I bought it from Maribel." "Of course," said the little figure. "She remembers." The shellboat drifted closer to the step. Luca knelt, holding the cone carefully away from the edge. "What are you?" he asked politely. "A keeper of the under harbor," she replied. My name is Sarah. We gather the quiet things that fall into the water, moon reflections, wishes spoken too softly, songs that people hum and forget. Tonight we smelled the twilight flavor, and so we came to thank the shore. Luca considered this. It seemed no stranger than a gelato that tasted like evening. Would you like some? Sarah smiled. Only a dream of it. Luca did not understand, but he lowered the cone just a little. The scent floated down, and Sarah cupped her hands in the air above the gelato. A small shimmer gathered between her palms like mist. She brought it to her lips and closed her eyes. "Ah," she said, "cream from the waking world, honey from the cliffs, salt from the old morning. Yes, this will make a gentle tide." The tiny lights beneath the water brightened as if pleased. Luca sat on the harbor step, and for a while he and Sarah watched the sea together. The waves whispered. A cat moved along the wall behind him, placing each paw in silence. Far away, the lighthouse turned its beam over the darkening water, slow and steady. Slow and steady. Sarah told Luca about the under harbor, not in hurried words, but in little pieces between the hush of waves. Beneath the boats, where anchors rested and silver fish slept, there were gardens of seagrass that swayed, even when the water was still. There were doorways and rocks that opened only during the blue hour. There were libraries of shells, arranged by sound so that when the tide moved through them, they remembered the voices of sailors, mothers, children, and storms that had long since wandered away. No one in the under harbor kept clocks. They measured time by the cooling of stones, the lengthening of shadows above the surface, and the taste of moonlight in the water. Dreams, Sarah explained, often slipped down from open windows and drifted into the sea. Most dreams were light and brief, like feathers. Some were bright, some were tangled, some were heavy and needed softening. The keepers gathered them carefully, rinsed them in tide pools, and sent them back to sleepers as gentler things. "That is kind work," Luca said. "It is quiet work," Sarah replied. "Kindness often is." Luca took another taste of his gelato. It was still cool, still sweet. But now, beneath the honey and lemon, he could taste something like a shell held to the ear. He wondered if the flavor was changing or if he was simply learning how to listen. When he looked back toward the shop, he saw Maribel standing in the doorway beneath the awning. She did not wave, but her smile traveled across the harbor like lamplight. The evening deepened. The last rose color disappeared from the horizon, leaving a smooth blue sky scattered with stars. Luca knew his grandmother would be waiting, but he did not feel rushed. The village at night held him gently, as a hand holds a sleeping bird. "I should go home," he said. Sarah nodded. "Take the upper shell path tonight." "I don't know that path." "You will," said Sarah. The shell boat drifted back from the steps. The little lights gathered around it. Sarah lifted her hand again, and then the boat dipped below the surface without a splash. The lights followed, sinking down and down until they were only faint glimmers, then memories, then nothing but the dark, breathing water. Luca stood and turned away from the harbor. He meant to take the lane that led to his grandmother's house, but just beside the fish market, where there had always been a blank stone wall, he found a narrow stairway he had never seen before. Each step was inlaid with pale shells, and the shells glowed softly, one after another, as though remembering where feet should go. He smiled. The upper shell path. He climbed slowly. The cone remained in his hand, perfectly chilled, and though he had eaten from it several times, it seemed not much smaller than before. The stairs wound between houses where curtains stirred in open windows. Pots of lavender lined the landings. A sleeping dog opened one eye, sighed, and returned to its dream. Above, the sky widened and the sea appeared between rooftops in long, dark ribbons. At the top of the stairway, Luca found a terrace he did not know. It overlooked the entire village. The harbor lamps shimmered below. The boats rocked gently. The lighthouse beam moved over the water with endless patience. In the distance, the horizon had disappeared, so that sea and sky seemed joined in one vast, peaceful blue. On the terrace stood a small table with 2 chairs. One chair was ordinary, made of woven rush and wood. The other was smaller, carved from driftwood and polished pearl. Between them sat a bowl filled with tiny spoons. Luca approached. The terrace smelled of jasmine and salt. On the table rested a note written in Maribel's curling hand. For sharing? Luca laughed softly, but only once, because the night was quiet and he did not want to wake it. He sat in the ordinary chair and placed the cone in the bowl. As he did, the gelato gently reshaped itself into a round, shining scoop, large enough for 2, or perhaps for many. The little spoons chimed faintly. From the shadows of the terrace came soft rustlings. A moth with wings like folded lace settled on the edge of the bowl. A gecko crept from the warm wall. 2 tiny figures, cousins perhaps of Sarah, appeared in the pearl chair, their feet not quite reaching the seat. A round old cat, silver in the moonlight, padded up without invitation and settled beneath the table, as though she had always belonged there. No one spoke for a while. The company simply gathered. Luca took 1 spoonful. The tiny figures took shimmering spoonfuls no larger than dew. The moth sipped a memory of sweetness. The gecko blinked slowly, tasting the air. The cat did not eat, but purred, and the purr moved through the terrace like a small, steady engine of contentment. The Twilight gelato offered each guest something different. To Luca, it tasted of safe paths and grandmother's stories. To the tiny figures, it tasted of moonlit tides. To the moth, it tasted of lanterns seen through summer windows. To the gecko, it tasted of warm stones cooling under stars. To the cat, perhaps, it tasted of nothing at all and everything needed. Below the terrace, the village settled further into night. Dishes were dried and put away. Doors were latched, lamps were dimmed. The last voices faded. The sea continued its slow breathing, and each breath seemed to polish the silence. When the bowl was empty, the spoons lay still. The tiny figures bowed to Luca, then stepped into a crack in the terrace wall that filled briefly with blue light before becoming only stone again. The moth lifted into the air and vanished among the stars. The gecko returned to its warm crevice. The cat remained, because cats often choose the ending of a story for themselves. Luca picked up the empty cone, now light as a curled leaf, and began along a path that sloped gently from the terrace toward his grandmother's house. The silver cat followed him part of the way, then turned aside into a garden where night-blooming flowers opened like small white cups. His grandmother's house waited near the top of the village, its windows glowing amber. She sat by the open window in her shawl, looking toward the sea. When Luca entered, she did not ask why he had taken so long. Grandmothers in villages beside the sea often know that Twilight has its own errands. "I brought something sweet," Luca said. "I can smell that you did," she answered. He looked at the cone in his hand. It should have been empty, but nestled in the bottom was one last small curve of Twilight gelato, just enough for a taste. He handed it to her. His grandmother took it with great seriousness. She tasted, closed her eyes, and smiled. "Oh," she said softly, "Maribel made the old flavor. You know it? I knew it when I was little. I thought perhaps I had dreamed it." "Maybe you did," Luca said. His grandmother's smile deepened, and she reached for his hand. Together they sat by the window. The night air moved through the room, cool and tender. The scent of gelato lingered with the scent of clean sheets, lavender soap, and the sea. Below, the village slept. Above, the stars watched without blinking. The grandmother told Luca that when she was a child, the twilight flavor appeared on evenings when the sea was especially calm. She had once carried it to the lighthouse keeper who had been lonely, and after tasting it, he remembered a song his mother had sung to him. Another time, the flavor had been shared at a wedding when rain threatened and the clouds had softened into mist instead. It was not magic that changed things loudly, she said. It was magic that helped the heart remember how to be gentle. Luca listened with his head resting against the window frame. His eyelids grew heavier. The day, which had once seemed full of small tasks and sounds, now felt far away. He thought of Maribel stirring cream in the copper bowl. He thought of Sarah's shell boat slipping under the water. He thought of the terrace, the spoons, the moth, the cat, and the quiet company beneath the stars. His grandmother brushed a curl from his forehead. "You are nearly asleep," she whispered. "I'm listening," Luca murmured. "Yes," she said. "Sometimes sleep is another way of listening." She guided him to his room, where the bed was cool and the pillow smelled faintly of sun-dried cotton. The window remained open just a little, enough for the sea to send in its slow rhythm. Luca lay down, and his grandmother tucked the sheet around him, light as foam. On the windowsill, something glimmered. A tiny shell, no larger than a fingernail, rested there where nothing had been before. Luca smiled, though his eyes were closed. Outside, the village dreamed. Maribel washed the copper bowl and set it upside down to dry beneath the moon. The harbor boats rocked in their sleep. The lighthouse turned and turned, not searching, only keeping watch. Beneath the water, Sarah and the other keepers carried soft dreams through gardens of seagrass. They gathered the tangled ones and loosened them. They rinsed the heavy ones until they floated. They tucked the sweetest ones into shells and sent them upward on the tide, where they rose as breezes through open windows. In one house, a baker dreamed of kneading dough beneath a sky full of stars. In another, a fisherman dreamed of finding a pearl shaped like a laughing mouth. A child dreamed of a silver cat leading her across rooftops. An old woman dreamed of walking barefoot through twilight, holding her grandson's hand with the taste of honey and salt still bright upon her tongue. And Luca dreamed of gelato, not of eating it exactly, but of traveling through its softness. He dreamed he walked across a shoreline made of pale cream, where waves of lavender light rolled in and vanished around his ankles. He dreamed of lemon trees growing from moonlit sand, their leaves whispering lullabies. He dreamed of a honey-colored path leading toward a small blue door set into the side of a shell. When he opened the door, there was no room inside, only a warm wind. And the wind carried him gently upward, as if he weighed nothing at all. He rose over the village, over the awnings and balconies, over the harbor and the sleeping boats. He saw Maribel's shop glowing faintly below, then dimming, then becoming just another soft window among many. He saw the sea spread out endlessly, dark and calm. He saw stars floating both above him and below him, until he could no longer tell whether he was drifting through sky or water. There was no need to choose. The dream held him. The tide breathed in, the tide breathed out. The night grew deeper, and with it came a stillness that touched every rooftop, every shell, every folded sail. The last little thoughts of the day grew quiet. The small worries loosened and drifted away like paper boats carried gently out to sea. Nothing had to be followed, nothing had to be remembered. Only the softness remained. The shore rested beneath the stars. The gelato shop slept with its blue shutters closed. The copper bowl cooled in the moonlight. Far below the harbor, the keepers of quiet dreams moved slowly through silver water, humming their shell-soft songs. And in the little room above the village, Luca slept peacefully, his breathing slow, his hands open, his dreams sweetened by honey, salt, cream, and twilight. Now the story too begins to settle. The waves are slower now. The lamps are softer. The sky is wide and kind. Let the seaside fade into blue. Let the scent of vanilla and lemon become only a trace, a gentle sweetness at the edge of sleep. Let the quiet path close behind you, safe and complete. There is nothing more to do tonight. The tide will keep breathing. The stars will keep watch. The village will dream until morning, and you may rest. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.